fans that choose to go live right here in the small town of Pesotum, Illinois. We're here along the former Illinois Central, and what you're seeing is a possibly old depot that dates possibly turn of the century. It's a small one, still in existence. I happened to see this earlier today. Sorry I haven't been able to do a live stream. Weather's been uncontrollably hot, and this is had to spare my phone of the heat and all that. But mainly wanted to showcase this for you. It's kind of, as you can see, I mean, this is a type of depot that you would see in an old black and white or sepia type picture or on a postcard. It's actually one of a few old Illinois Central relics that have been saved. What's nice about this is that along with this, there's been other historic things pre-1950s have been saved. I counted a total of 3 water towers. 2 there just on display. There's one that's in Kinmundy, which is just way south of here. It's a huge one. There's also one in Centralia that's been preserved. And there's one in Monticello, which is now part of the Monticello Railway Museum. It's actually being fixed to be put into use as a water tower to fill up the water on their steam locomotive number 401, which is a Southern steam locomotive. It's a 280 dating to 1907. But we're actually along the single main here, so we're just kind of back off here. So we stopped off, to break for a little bit. We're hoping to see if anything else pops up. We missed an Amtrak train, which it had those newer locomotives I don't really care for. So just kind of give you a look all around. So nice wide open area. This is a neat little area if you're just wanting to take a break or charge up your electronics. And right now the flies and mosquitoes are bad here. But just kind of give you a view of what's around here. You can see there's an outlet there. Right behind this tree, there's another outlet. You can't see it. And a neat little thing. Got a picnic table with an outlet. I got my other tripod. And my camera's sitting on top of it. My camcorder is actually on charge right now. So I'm going to flip the camera and tell you guys how today went. Today's date is July 5th, the day after Independence Day. So, needless to say, it was a warm day out, and I'm waiting for anybody to pop up here in the chat. So, earlier today, didn't get that many trains and all that. Start out to Tuscola, where my hotel room is at, and there's actually 3 rail lines that cross through there. Same one that's over here, which is the CM main, which actually continues down and goes right into Tuscola itself. You have the Union Pacific, former Missouri Pacific main line. Did manage to catch 2 trains on her. And a former Wabash line, which is now a short line that is owned by, I think it's Genesee, Wyoming. Can't remember the name of it, but neat little signal set up there. So we get there, and just throughout the day we weren't seeing that many trains. The seeing has been slow And I'm getting bit up by bugs here, so bear with me. So the seeing's been slow, but I'm seeing a lot of the artifacts, including the depot that's behind, our live stream camera here. But I wanted to tell you about my visit to the Monticello Railroad Museum. It's just it's actually just kind of kitty corner. It's more off of close to the NS main that runs through there. Uh, what a neat place! And I'll share with you is how today's visit went. Basically, we get there, and of course, they had number 31, which is a EMD RS 1325, built in the early 60s, is one or two in existence, and it's actually the only one currently running. Its sister is actually. I'm going to take this down. There. It bothers me. But, anyways, it's actually the only one that's running. Its sister is sitting up at the Illinois Railway Museum, and they do a train ride with it. So I was like, okay, cool. I've been wanting to see this thing because TrainNut Productions had put out a locomotive roster book back in the 60s that the late J. David Ingalls had helped publish. And sure enough, when it comes to electric motive division, their locomotive, sure enough, listen in there, that this locomotive type was had only two built, and they were built for the Chicago and Illinois Midland Railway. Well, these two locomotives basically chugged down into the very existence beyond years and all. Well, and of course they were both retired and found new homes. So this is neat, in a way that they didn't build that many of this model locomotive. So they had their train ready, and what was neat about it is they had an old Illinois Central coach. Actually, it was a baggage car. They had a Rock Island coach that did in the 1920s. I think it was 1925, according to one of their volunteers there. They had an open car, which was basically a flat car that they built on, basically surrounded it with railing and putting benches on it. And an Illinois Central caboose that was on the end. What's neat about this, and I tell you what, this is well worth it. $15 admission. I figured, okay, I'll just pay that. I want to go, just explore. No, the admission includes a train ride. Oh, you know darn well I went on that train ride. So, I got that video project that's going to be uploaded. It's by itself of the visit to this museum. And pardon me, the bugs are just bad right now. It's getting into the evening, the temperature's starting to cool down, sun's going down, so just bear with me. But anyways, so I purchased a ticket, and I was like, okay, I got the camera and all that, I'm gonna ride this train, but I want to ride in the open car. Never had ridden in an open car. I tell you what, it was fun. Had the camcorder set up, and we actually rode right into the town of Monticello, where the depot's been preserved. So this is neat. And they had a little bit of a layover stop there for about, I would say about maybe 15, 20 minutes. So it was enough for me to go in there, and I tell you what, they had some neat artifacts in there. And I tell you what, just the preservation of history by these guys is very impressive. So I got the stroll around there, got back on the train, and we rode backwards. Well, I thought we were going back to the museum. No, we were going to go past it and further on up to another point. Now, I tell you what, I am very impressed with the Monticello Railway Museum, simply because they have very knowledgeable volunteers that are willing to tell a story that it's not often that you get people like that. So, one of the conductors that was riding on there, by the name of David Sloan, approached me. We started a conversation and all that, and he was noticed that was on the back of my shirt, and of course, Mike, yes, I am wearing your shirt, but this is the shirt I am wearing. And I happen to know it's Cowan, Tennessee, which is my hometown. So, me being the representative to my railroad museum, basically was touching base, volunteer to volunteer, especially me being on the board of directors, so basically they were curious about the area, what the museum was all about. I was able to fill them in. So this was the neat thing, the connections that I've had with other places, as far as my experience goes. Well, lo and behold, if anybody makes a visit to the museum, I tell you what, there is a bit of history attached to this. The tracks that the train runs on basically is former Illinois Central. So back sometime in mid to late 80s, Illinois Central didn't see a purpose of keeping the track and basically wanted to get rid of it while the museum bought it. So they've been running on that track since. I think the museum has been around, pretty long and all, but they had a segment of track, that was Illinois Central, and running right alongside of it was actually former Illinois Terminal. So, bit of history again. Well, the Illinois Terminal ran through there and up until sometime in the 60s, and basically decided, well, they're going to abandon their line and get trackers right onto the Illinois Central to continue on where they were going to run. So, again, there was a story attached to the area. So, you're riding through there, and like I said, I got to commend Monticello Railway Museum. You guys were very professional. I mean, I was very impressed. Pretty much was like, man, this is one heck of a place, one heck of a jewel that people should go to more often. So, we're getting done with the train ride, and we did a little bit of a chase, which would be in the Calypso and all, because I had to get this locomotive in action. Arriving at Monticello Depot, and basically hitting a crossing, just going the other way, the train coming back, I had to get that clip. So, but upon there was another volunteer that was actually cutting down some brush with a brush hog and all. So, got talking again, and they seen on my shirt, hey, you're from Tennessee, people were just curious what's it like and all. So again, I'm sharing the story, of my hometown, and basically the Railroad Museum that I'm proud to be a part of. So he was pretty fascinated about it. I actually had a very good conversation and all that. Well, as soon as I got back, there was more people that I end up getting a conversation with. Of course, I had, the business cards for the museum, so I got talking to them. And the other thing that was also common was, one of the volunteers also does YouTube. So, hey, we got something in common, as far as sharing, so we share channels. So, and they say, one of the other volunteers also subscribe to my channel. So if he ever sees this, thank you so much. I'm still thanking you. I know it's kind of late in the day, but I really have to thank you. So, you're helping me trying to build up towards the goal, as far as 1,000 subscribers go. I'm still a little ways off, but we're going to keep right at it. So getting on there, and of course, the men and gentlemen who kind of had some mobility issues, but tough as can be, says, hey, I can give you the tour and all that. So we went and checked out the equipment, and a lot of the equipment that they have there is just a lot There's stories attached to it. So they have an Alca RS3 painted up in Illinois Central paint that was originally built for the Long Island Railroad. They also had that. They also had a rebuilt Alca RS3 that used to be owned by the Green Bay Western. So it was up there as well. And of course, they got a Jeep 11 that once belonged to the Illinois Central. It was one of their Paducah rebuilds back in the day, 8733. It was kept in the shed, kept away from the elements. They had 1189, which is the. Oh, I thought I was hearing something. They had Wabash number 1189, which is an F unit. They had been used in previous excursions, and I remember that one because I seen it in a video of an excursion that they did with the Canadian National FPA4 that they also have that took place in Decatur, Illinois, for some sort of a Santa train that was sponsored by Norfolk Southern. So, hey, that's something, to finally get to see this equipment that, something's attached to it, of an event that occurred. Well, they also had Southern number 401, which is a 280 dating to 1907. And I had to remark, man, this reminds me of Southern 154 that ran at Knoxville. They were just about the same size, but they were built by two different locomotive builders. 401 was built by the Baldwin Locomotive Company, while 154, I believe, was built by the Richmond Locomotive Works, which was bought up by Alco. So, a bit of a connection there. I'm still seeing these old Southern 280s and all that. I mean, that's about the third one I've seen. So, now I'm seeing 630, which is a heavy 280. But now to see 154, which is a smaller 280, and now 401, which is basically a similar size and pretty old. So, bit of a treat getting to see that. But what was neat is being hosted around by our gracious host, of a tour guide. I wish I could remember the gentleman's name. Really nice to talk to. He's got a YouTube channel as well that I subscribe to just to kind of help him out. But anyways, he led us to another barn where there was an EMD E8 that was being rebuilt. And lo and behold, it used to run the excursion train out of Nashville. So it was actually one of the ones that used to run for the Tennessee Central Railway Museum. So it was kind of nice to see another one and to get a bit of history on it that was originally built for the Pennsylvania Railroad. So I've even met the gentleman that's personally in charge, working on it and all that. By the name of John, who real nice guy. Got to talk to him for a few minutes, and he was telling me what all was going on with it. He just rebuilt the fuel pump for it. It seems to be set in stone. He's still doing work on the motor, so he's got a long ways to go. But he's doing this bit by bit because he wants it done right. But here's the thing: he's been working on it for 21 years, so that's quite the project, to work on it that long. But I understand where he's coming from because people all say, well, yeah, you've been working out for 20-some years. If you want something done right, you have to do it in a perspective of making sure everything is done a certain way to ensure that it's going to be working efficiently. That's the way it works. So I understand where he is coming from on that. So that was being worked on. They also got an Illinois Central caboose that they're in the process of fixing up. They had some primer paint on it, but they're going to paint it up in the Illinois Central orange, so it's going to look really sharp by the time it's done. Now, getting further on, we were taken to another building, and of course, there was an old CB&Q wooden caboose that had a baggage compartment, which you don't see these as much. They only built them a certain way at a certain period, and there's not very many of them left. But to see this one, it was a fine example. And of course, it was being restored. The wood had run out on it. They had to put some new wood on there. I met the gentleman that was in charge of that project, a real nice guy to talk to. So he was kind of filling in what all was being done. And I had a question on that is, okay, we got a wooden caboose back in Cowan that we're trying to get fixed. Problem is, it was basically sided with untreated pine. What is the type of wood you're using to put on the side, in the slats? Well, sure enough, he told me it was Doug fir, which is a more durable wood that holds up a lot better than pine. So I may have to stick a bug in somebody's ear about that, when it comes time for our caboose to get fixed. We just got the roof done on it. Now the side is going to be the next project. So it's going to be redone, but I'm going to put in one suggestion on there. So, anyways, getting back to the story, he was working on this. Well, attached to that was a wooden Wabash boxcar, and I mean, this thing is old. They're also doing work on it. They got plans for it to where they're going to take the wood off of it and basically, reinforce the steel ribs that the wood basically ties right onto. Um, but that's a future project. They're just basically getting in motion. But what's neat about it is there was next door to that, they opened up the garage door and there was actually more stuff being fixed on. And there was a tail car that kind of had a sad little story to it. When it was retired, it was actually found in Gulfport, Mississippi, on the swamp, being used as a hunting lodge. That is as sad as can be. I'm glad in the way it was rescued. They've been planning a future project with it. Last I seen, it looked like they had uh, sandblasted it during the process, but like everything else, when they get on one project, they want to see through it before they get on to the next one. So there's quite a bit of history that's there. So we get done with it, and we actually let outside, and they had about 5 or 6 old style reefer cars sitting on one track. And what's neat about it is you can see the old names, being displayed on it as a crying out, you know, these names were first displayed on it sometime in the 1920s, 1930s. You don't see this stuff anymore. It was such a treat getting to walk around there. And like I said, then of course our tour guide concluded with that, so we went on back, because of some of the other stuff I wanted to check out. What's neat, what's also neat about this place is they got a control tower. It's actually a replica of one that was somewhere that had been torn down, but they built a new one. But what's neat about this, and this is what I was told, is that the controls were actually brought from an old tower that were placed in there. So, bit of history that was being said, but I didn't get to see inside of it because nobody was in there today, so I didn't get to go inside of it, you know, sadly. But maybe on maybe the next time I'm back up here, going back to there, hopefully they'll have it open and we can get a look at it. But what's also neat is they actually save quite a bit of signals. Semaphores, uh, some of the traditional block signals that they had, like on the LNN, the NC, which is the tri lights, where let's say, basically the traffic light, and they had a B&O CPL signal that was also trackside. It wasn't lit, but it was neat to see the stuff. As a man, they preserved it an awful lot. You'll have to excuse the noise. People are lighting off fireworks. Of course, it's 4th of July weekend. So getting back on, this visit to the museum. So they had some more equipment that was on display, and in the train shed. And one of the neat things was the baggage car that was originally built for the Delaware and Hudson, that was later sold to the Gulfmobile Ohio, was used on one of their trains. And then later on was also used on Amtrak. Well, then it was retired and basically brought to the museum, but they put it right back in Delaware and Hudson colors. So I was like, okay, this is neat. But getting to walk through in it, it's like, they had like displays and all that. So they had an Illinois Central RPO car, which was neat. And a lot of the stuff they had in there is, how they stored all the mail. That was in there as well. So it was really neat to see this stuff. And they also got some freight cars right near there that, man, they did, 1920s, 1930s. They even got a Davenport switcher that, dates about, 1940s, somewhere in there. But we got done with there, and there was another barn to go look at that they actually had more stuff on display in. So I step inside there, and of course, there was another Illinois Central caboose, just like the one that was on the train. They had a Quebec Central snowplow that was in there, which it was pretty neat to see. And of course, you could actually walk and go inside these things and sit in the cab and see what it was like, which was really neat. So I got to see that, and of course, 6071, which is the very first SD40 built for the Illinois Central, was also in there as well. Of course, it's in the Illinois Central Death Star scheme, but when it was first built, it was delivered to the company in the orange and white paint. So basically, it was sitting in the later paint, as I call it. What was neat about it, you can go inside the cab. Oh, that was a treat. To be in the very first SD40 build, which is one of my favorite locomotives. I love the SD40s, SD40-2s. One of my favorite EMDs. But to sit in the seat and I was like, man, how many miles did this locomotive have? It leaves you wondering about that. So I got to sit there. Well, right behind it was a Milwaukee Road EMD switcher. Hey, cool, I love the Milwaukee Road. It's always neat, especially the older EMD switchers. They were the true workhorses of every yard, here in the U.S. Got to go inside there and even sit in the engineer's seat as a man, it's a real treat, just to get to see this stuff. And I'm having to deal with the bugs, so don't mind me. But going on, they actually had other stuff on display, and of course, it was neat just to kind of walk through. Well, they had other stuff in there. I was like, okay, I want to look. Well, I chanced upon 3 more cabooses. Well, one of them was a transfer that had the Illinois Terminal Company markings on it. So it was, hey, this is cool. There was that, and there was a former Norfolk Western caboose that was in there as well. They had a former Wabash caboose that was in there. And of course, I ran across a locomotive I haven't seen in years that used to sit down in Bridgeport, Alabama, the old Illinois terminal switcher that was once owned by the Sequatchie Valley Railroad. That's there as well. And here's an update on it because I was told about this. They have it in the plans to fix it and get it running. Oh, I was so glad to hear that. Yeah, because that locomotive's got such a history to it. When it first came to the railroad in Bridgeport, that was actually one of the locomotives they were operating the most, basically running up as far as Dunlap and even the Pikeville and picking up cars and bringing them down before they cut that line back. But, of course, it's nice to know that, that they're going to fix it up and say, hey, the moment they fix it up and put it right in the old Illinois terminal paint, that's going to be a treat. So, but walked right on through there and basically concluded the visit. And of course, I had to go to the gift shop, and I'm going to show you guys what I bought. So that's the museum. Illinois, like I said, it's the Illinois Terminal. Excuse me. Monticello Railway Museum. Sorry, I got my words mixed up. It was going for $22. And Mike, you like this? Recognize the colors? So, anyways, it was such a fun experience, and of course, like I said, I had to stop in the gift shop. I was like, I need a momentum because I had a really good time there. And a conductor I ran into that when I had such a good conversation with. I shook his hand once again. It was great talking to you, sir. Yeah, and I left a little generous donation because I'm wanting to see them grow a little bit more, just like every other railroad museum. As far as getting equipment, because it's like I tell Mike, my buddy, Monticello Railway Productions. Again, when it comes to being tour guides and volunteers, we're all carrying a story that we're carrying on whenever people come and see the stuff, and whenever they ask questions, that we are the ones to have the answers for. So, now, and of course, I'm getting bit up here, so bugs are bad right now. So, anyways, guys, I wanted to share that story with you. I know I haven't gotten to do so much of the live streams. Train action has just been slow. And I don't know why. I'm always here to say, hey, I at least want to catch something somewhere. And in this neat little area here, and I'm going to flip the camera once again, where we're standing at. Now, this was originally a 2-track main, so there was another track that was more closer to the depot, and I don't think this depot has been moved. But look at how it had been built. So, if you were to look at a postcard or an old black and white or a sepia picture in the way there, you would say, yeah, that's meant for something like that. And of course, it's boarded up, but man, this thing is in really good shape. I've not seen a depot like this in good shape. Most of these old depots would have been torn down simply because nobody wanted to keep up with the upkeep. But this one, somebody has been keeping up with it, and it's really nice. It screams the days of steam in the way that how it looks. And I tell you what, it's perfect for any picture. If somebody was to photograph a train that's coming on by, it makes a good picture in the background, like if you were standing on the other end. So, and we got a signal just on the other side there. I'm going to check and see if we have anything lined up. So, guys, if you're watching this, sure post a comment, ask questions. Like I said, we're going to be here a little bit. We're going to wait and see if we can catch anything. It is July 5th, so we're enjoying a good weekend. And I'm going to zoom out. And I'm gonna check the signal real quick, so don't go anywhere. I'll let you know if I see anything. Well, don't look like anything yet. Signal's still dark. Not hearing anything. But mainly want to share the story with you guys, plus show you the depot and the area of Pesotum. I'm going to sign off here. If we happen to have a train, I'll get back on. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in to the live streams and all that. And as always, see you at the next watch spot.